Hello, everyone, and
Hello.
welcome to the Saturday stream. I have a guest with me today. This
Hello,
is
everybody.
Thomas. He's my roommate. He's also the blanking your position in the band,
Oh, drum major.
drum major in the UCF band. So he is here to talk about. We're actually going to debate the topic of. I believe he's talking about marching band and its categorization of whether or not it is a sport. So first off, I'll talk a little bit about my AI and what's going on. So you'll see Jeffrey is down in the corner, and he is not doing anything. In fact, the number on the screen is not changing at all because it is frozen, and this is a problem that I've been having recently while trying to run this running of the environment project. The For some reason the window is crashing. I can't figure out if it's with my code or with the Pygame code, so I'll be working on that in the days to come. But that is not the focus of today's stream. So uh, the way we're going to format this is I'm going to have Thomas here talk for a bit. He's got a PowerPoint that you'll see on the left of the screen. He will be explaining the content of that. And then once he's done, I will give a short rebuttal. And at any point in time, if you have any questions, just post them in the chat. I will be keeping an eye on that as he's talking and bringing them up when there's a break in the conversation. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Thomas. So,
Well, thank you.
Go ahead.
It's going to be fun to be here, and as Jono said, if you guys have any questions as we're moving along here, just let me know. As Jono said, I am one of the drum majors for the marching nights here at UCF. Other than that, I do play mellophone, and the wonderful, interesting sound you heard from me earlier is on my French horn. Without further ado, I'm here, as Jono said, to talk about marching band and why it is considered a sport, along with what's called DCI. Now, technical.
Now you should be able to click on the keyboard if you want.
Okay, thank you. So, first thing I should probably explain is what is DCI. And DCI stands for Drum Corps International, and what it is an organization that formed right around the early 1970s to organize what are called drum and bugle corps. And the best way I can describe a drum and bugle corps without getting too detailed, even though some people are going to be a little bit pissed off with me for this way of saying it, is marching band without woodwinds. So just your brass, percussion, front ensemble, so your pit, and then color guard, and dancers.
Would you say it's marching band but more metal?
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay. Yeah.
All metal, no wood.
Yeah.
So the participants are anywhere from 13 to 22. You have an audition and everything that goes through that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Their season, per se, of performing is June, and this year, June to August, and this year it's June 23rd to August 13th. In the last week of performances, it was called Finals Week. There's a lot of different performances that happen, and a huge competition, and eventually at the end of all of it, one of these drum and bugle corps is declared the world champion for that year. But unless there's any questions about necessarily what DCI is at this time, I think that's really all you need as a background for what's different from marching band. Let's move on to actually what I'm more here to talk about. Here's some pictures of what some drum corps look like. So we have the all-white corps, Phantom Regiment. Over in the left corner, we have Carolina Crown. And then this interesting GIF we have here is the Cavaliers. They brought their front ensemble on in the middle of the field and went around in a circle and played. It was pretty interesting to watch. So, anyways, sport. So, is it a sport? And I guess the first thing you have to do is define what a sport is. So, as Merriam-Webster says, it's kind of right there. I'm not going to read that to you, but I will break it down. So a contest or game, well, like I mentioned, somebody at the end of the summer gets declared the world champion for that year in drum corps. So there's your contest, and throughout the whole summer at all their performances, they're actually getting scored by a very well laid out judging system that is predetermined. Everybody agrees to it, and they're competing against each other throughout the whole summer. Now, that's not the whole purpose. The whole purpose is to perform music, But they are competing against each other to be the best, like nobody ever was. Anyways, certain physical activities, well, we'll get to that portion a little bit later, and specific set of rules and compete against each other. Well, as I mentioned previously, in drum corps, they have their own set of rules and their own set of scoring and everything. And the rules even lay out within drum corps what specific instruments can be played, so, no woodwinds. What specific branch instruments can be played. And this 2 years ago, they actually started allowing trombones on the field, which are starting to get utilized more often. Along with, even in marching bands, we have our own set of rules of how long shows can be. And in a college marching band, you have rules set by your football team by, oh, well, it's raining outside, you can't play today, or it's pouring, but you're going to do halftime anyways, or how long your halftime show can be, or what kind of shows that you can do out there. But anyways, so let's move on to that physical activity portion. So World Health Organization defines it as you can see the definition there, and as all of your wonderful doctors have probably told you multiple times how much exercise you need to be doing. There's your definitions of moderate or extraneous activity and how much you should be getting a week, and the heart rates that you should be achieving for those. So moderate, you'd be getting anywhere from 80 to 120, and extraneous, you'd be getting 130 plus. Really, 150 is where you want to be. Anything over that's kind of putting yourself through really hard physical exertion, but still.
That's beats per minute, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Beats per minute.
Making sure I had the acronym right.
Yes. Thank you for asking about that. So in 2005, an actual study was done on this. Unfortunately, no more recent studies to my knowledge have been done, but if somebody's aware of that, please let me know. They monitored actually one of these drum corps members' metabolic rate, which would be his oxygen consumption, CO2 production, how much air he's breathing in, of course, carbon dioxide out, and then his heart rate. And what they found was his heart rate, just when he was standing on the sideline, not even doing anything, when the band was performing and he was not, jumped up to 180 beats per minute, his heart rate. And when he was performing out on the field and he marched drums, the tenor drums, so there's 4 different drums or 6 different drums, anywhere from 4 to 6 depending, his heart rate shot up to almost 200 beats per minute. And if we go back to what we were talking about before with extraneous activity, that's well within that range. Well, I can't speak today. Well within that range.
There's a whale's worth of range, and it's inside of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. And then his oxygen intake, as you can see, there was 13 to 14 times higher than when he was just sitting there talking like me and Jono are. And the doctor who was doing this study equated this to his oxygen consumption to a well-trained runner in the middle of a marathon. Or his heart rate, he compared it to a well-conditioned track runner running a 400 or 800 meter dash at the fastest they could possibly run. And that's, a 400 meter dash takes, less than 20 seconds?
400 meter? I believe that's one lap around the track.
One
right?
lap around the track? Okay, so
that'd be closer to a minute.
Closer to a minute.
But maybe 40 seconds for someone who is extremely trained in the matter.
And if you're considering how long a marching band show, or specifically a drum corps show is, it's almost 15 minutes. So you're doing this for 15 minutes straight. Your heart rate and your metabolic rate, you're definitely getting in your exercise there, and that's just performing, not considering all the preparation that goes into this. So, moving on from that, some of you are probably saying, but athletes train, like marching bands, you could just, I could just start playing an instrument tomorrow and join a marching band. Well, you're right, but you're kind of not thinking about everything that goes into this. And drum corps, as I mentioned, they have their auditions that actually start all the way back in as early as September. Most of them start though in October. And they really start preparing in October for something that's happening in June. And they also have their spring training, so they move in around late April, early May, and they have 1 month of preparations, um, rehearsing every single last day, day in and out, preparing for shows. And that's similar to even the marching bands, where we have our band camp normally the week before school starts or week before performance season starts, where again we're day in day out. Even like here at UCF, we do in 12-hour band camp. We go 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 3 hours outside in the morning and 3 hours in the evening, and then 3 hours inside during the afternoon when it's extremely hot and not a good idea to be outside to do music performance and preparation. And in addition, both of these organizations have clinics and, as I mentioned, rehearsals that are consistently happening throughout, your summer for drum corps or throughout your band camps, band season for marching band. And to give you an idea of the usual daily schedule of a drum corps, here's one of my favorite corps, Carolina Crown's schedule. So as you can see, they wake up at 7:45 and get moving from there, and they have almost 3 hours of doing what's called a visual block, which is working on drill or working on certain visuals that are going within the drill. And then they're doing, looks like that day they were doing music for sectionals for a little bit, and they were outside for about 2 or 3 hours in the evening, doing what we come back to that study about, doing very intense heartbeats and heart rates and moving. And some of these drum corps actually do what's called run marching, where they'll actually be running for a solid minute or two to a set. But anyways, moving on from that, some of you are probably saying, but drum corps don't have fans? Like, you need to have fans that be like a sport. No, not those fans. Those fans. So each summer, somewhere between 400,000, around 400,000 people attend all of the shows that happen throughout the summer, which is somewhere around over 100 shows, with an average attendance of 60,000 people attending that finals week with all the different performances and everything that's happening there. Now, that's not including people that are watching it online, like yourselves who are watching a stream here. All of these competitions are streamed, and even for marching bands, most of their things are streamed or posted on YouTube, which is not included in that average there. So the average stream for them or for a marching band competition or show is included there at 3,300 people. So if you actually total all of that up, just for drum corps alone, there's over 1 million fans. And if you consider marching bands alone instead of drum corps, you probably get a completely higher number. But unfortunately, I can't get any statistics on that at this time being. I could, make that as a research study. That'd be an interesting study. But
if any of you know that statistic in watching the video, you can leave that in the comments. Just give a link to a source or something.
Yeah. And so if you compare, though, that 1 million fans to some sports, of course, you can't compete with the NFL at 111 million fans there. But if you look at some of the less popular sports, like hockey, track, rugby, and lacrosse, you see that they're actually kind of similar in their fan bases. Obviously, it's a different kind of fan base.
Well, I would think there'd be some crossover, especially there would be crossover with the NFL, especially with the marching bands having a lot of inclusion into the football.
That is very true, and especially if you get to some of the smaller colleges or even at high schools where their high school football team sucks. A lot of the people that are there, save the people that are students that are there because they have nothing better to do on a Friday night. A lot of people are there just to support the marching band, and even at some small colleges, or even a good example here is Bethune-Cookman. More people attend their football games because of that marching band, not because of anything else there. So, with that all being said, again, I'm part of the UCF Marching Knights here. I left you with some cool little pictures there, and then the DCI logo's left there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jono.
All right.
For his rebuttal here. Again, if you guys have any questions or whatever, please leave them in the comment section as we go here.
All right, and if you're watching this at a later date, you can leave them in the comment section there. I will be in contact with Thomas. He lives on the other side of that wall, so it is not hard to reach him. But I do have a paint window up here, so I will be using that for my rebuttal. So first off, I want to talk a little bit about how I'm planning to attack this topic, because I would like to say you gave a excellent explanation
Thank
of the definition of physical activity and how a marching band performance is considered a physical activity, because I can understand the movement even if it is not at the pace of maybe a sprinter or so. Having to breathe into an instrument while making those motions does cause a large toll on your system, and I can completely understand that. But what I would like to question in the classification of this topic of whether or not it's a sport is the question of whether or not the definition of sport is correct in terms of how society views it. So, what I'd like to get at here is, so right now we have sports, and I want to make sure that this is on the screen, but it is. So we have sports, and I think right now the argument is considering sports the most general group of events and activities to consider. But the way that I personally view sports is that a sport is essentially an athletic game, and so in that terms, there's another piece of the hierarchy up here, which is game, which starts to when we look at the actual definition of game. And now I don't have the Webster's definition of game with me because I did not prepare a PowerPoint for this. But no, I'm not hating. But if we look at game as the more general topic that sports falls under, then we start to consider what a game is. And so Socratic philosophy tells us not to necessarily answer the question, but to question the question you're asking to make sure it's the correct question. So I would be asking whether this athletic game idea is accepting of the marching band realm of activities, whether it be drum corps or marching at a football game or something like that. So my idea is that with this idea of a sport being a game, because when you use sport in a sentence, you don't say I went to the sport. You say I played the sport. And although you could say I play an instrument, you don't say that I played marching band.
That's
in a
true.
sense. So what this idea is with game here is that when I think of a game, and I hope that some of you in the audience agree with me, is when I think of a game, there's either two people or maybe two different sides of the situation, and so you have two different parties affiliated in the situation. There could be multiple parties, maybe if it were like a race or something like that. But essentially, you have two or more parties involved. So this is this category could include marching band, because at these tournaments where they go to perform and be deemed the world champion, there are many parties affiliated. But one aspect of a game that doesn't necessarily do it for me in terms of marching band is when you have a game, if you have the two parties playing against each other, then the actions of one party directly affect the overall score of the second party. And so this is where the line for me starts to be drawn, because when we look at things like that are agreeably and very respectively athletic, like marching band or perhaps cheerleading, gymnastics, there's others that I can't think of at the moment, but when we look at this range of athletic events, these events are scored by judges, and so someone it's basically a situation where everyone could do very well, but it's more of a question of who did better than who did better than someone else.
Right.
In a sense. So, like, let's say, uh, this will get a little bit into a gray area, but let's say you can have a group of people in at these athletic events, and they score a 9 out of 10, a 10 out of 10, an 8, and a 7, and so obviously the 10 wins. But if this group did slightly better and instead got a 9, that wouldn't change the fact that this group got a 10. And so that's what does it for me is like if you are playing a sport, and so then you have these two teams that are directly going head to head, and one team scores, it's almost as if they are removing those points from the other team's score. And so in a sense, it kind of, for me, a sport is something where a one party directly affects another party in order to succeed or be the victor of that event. So I agree that marching band does have a fan base and a culture, and I think that there is the main reason that the category of marching band would want to be considered a sport is because of the respect that sports are given for their athletic ability. Right. But I don't know that naming it a sport necessarily fixes that problem. I think that it's more of a question of changing the culture of society as opposed to changing the category, although connotations do have a large play on how people view things.
That is true.
So naming marching band a sport would just give off these connotations that would allow people to view it in a new light. But I think that it may not necessarily be that naming marching band a sport is the best option. I think that much like how we decided that pumpkins are no longer vegetables, it may be necessary to create an entire new category that is simply athletic events. Because there are a lot of different events that fall into this category that I'm describing.
Yeah.
There is like cheerleading, gymnastics. There are some gray areas, like if you consider boxing or maybe judo.
Yeah.
These are things where the outcomes of one person's actions do affect another person's outcome, but at the end there's always there are always judges that are judging the situation. But I think that the main topic I'm getting at is when one party does something and it directly affects another party. Because let's say in a marching band, if someone plays a song, and there are always going to be some aspects that will affect the people, because if the band that goes before you plays and just kills it, that's going to affect you psychologically. But let's say you just go black box, the bands are hidden away and can't hear the other bands. So if one band plays, then the other band plays after them. There's no direct contact between those two events. Right. But if you apply that same scenario to a sports team, then if a football team goes out, the way that a sport works is you're playing against someone else. So you can't necessarily have these independent events. I think that the actions of one team have to be dependent on the other team's actions.
Yeah.
So
I get what you're saying there, because even like what you're saying in a football game, you have your defense and your offense playing against each other. Even in like soccer, you're trying to score and their defense is trying to stop you. Whereas in marching band or in like a competition setting of marching band, there isn't really that happening there. There's the like my group goes to perform and then your group goes to perform, and they're two independent events. It's not your group performs and my group says, oh, well, we need to do this because that's what they're doing.
Mhm. So I think that this is just, it's more of a question of what the category actually is and how you define the category, because obviously the definition in Webster's does encompass this idea of these athletic events, simply because it is a very general definition. But I think that the definition itself is almost too general, because to say athletic game, which would normally be a synonym for sport,
Right.
wouldn't necessarily encompass these athletic events.
That is true, and even like for example, like with cheerleading or anything like that, while they're in the same situation requesting to be considered a sport, again it goes back to what you're saying about independent events and being judged and not necessarily being two events occurring at the same time. It's two isolated events, and like what you're saying, they're very general definitions which I used, which of course is not exactly on purpose, but on purpose.
We're getting some interesting requests in the comments, but go on.
Getting some interesting requests there, indeed. So, but like what you're saying, or even for people who are like twirling. Twirling is something that, while they'd love to be considered a sport, it's not exactly a sport. It more falls into an athletic event, which, again, as you said, is a synonym. That is, you do bring up an interesting point there about defining it as an athletic event. I've never heard somebody bring up that point before there.
Yeah. No, I mean this is why I really wanted to have this as a debate, because it's almost a hobby of mine to ponder these categorical situations. There are other situations like, have I told you the difference between a slut and a whore?
No.
All right, so I have decided that a slut is a predator and a whore is the prey. So if someone is coming up to you and trying to seduce you, then they would be a slut. But if you are able to seduce someone easily, then they are a whore.
Interesting. That's different.
But these are situations where there are a lot of words that are synonyms, but in connotation they do mean different things. So I think this is it's definitely a debatable topic, and so I would ask you, so if you have a strong opinion on this matter, or even if you've just watched this and have decided one way or another, please leave a comment in the chat or in the comment section after the video has been posted on which side you would side with in this argument. But so it is interesting to have these debates on these categorized situations, because there are a lot of general categories that we use in the world.
Yeah.
And it's gets kind of difficult. There's a lot of implications that generalized categories can cause problems in situations, whether it be in like questions of diversity or something like that.
That's true.
So I think that we've been having some pretty good conversation here, but I think it is time to move on to the next section. If you have watched any of my streams where I have a guest on, I do have a section that is rather reoccurring called Out of Your Element. So I'm going to play a quick ad here, and we will get set up for that. So we will be right back. And it's probably not playing an ad, so we can keep talking if we want.
Yeah. I say my sister.
I figured. Need a drink of water. Now's the time. Apparently someone wants to see your soccer calves.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you might have me beat there.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. All right. I believe we're back. So, like I said, we will be moving into the section that I have reoccurring with all of my guests, and that is Out of Your Element. Last time... Oh, we do have a question in the comments. If you want to just if you want to just write that out while I'm uh, setting up the situation here, then we will answer it when you are ready. Um, so what this section is that I will be asking my guest here to describe something that he may not normally be describing in a given situation. Last time we had Dan and Osi talking about chicken nuggets,
Yeah.
but also talking about picking up chicks. And
Yeah.
So, what the topic that I would like you to talk about when you are prepared is, well, first off, I should set the scene a little bit. You are a big car fan, are you not?
Well, of course.
You are, he's constantly talking about cars, and if I say something about cars, then he will talk for a long time, and I will not understand any of it, because
Yeah.
I know nothing in
I
the
kinda-
realm of auto mechanics.
In a sense, I'm sure it's kind of like Charlie Brown when the parents are talking
Yeah,
along. You hear
yeah.
wah 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 wah.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm sure that a lot of us have friends that are avid car fans like this, but I would like to put your car abilities to the test, because
Right.
you are also an avid chef, are you not?
You could say that in some
so,
senses.
I'll walk in the room sometimes and be hit with beautiful smells of food that is being made, and I'll realize that it is not my food, because my food would not smell like that. But the question that I would like, or the task I would like you to accomplish, is I would like you to describe how to cook chicken parmesan using, and every time you would normally talk about something pertaining to food, say something pertaining to a car. And so we're going to make a box up here, and this is every time that you say something pertaining to food. So we will be keeping a tally, but whenever you are prepared, I will begin the visual representation of your words.
Alright.
So was that a question in the comments, or was that
Let's
just
see.
more shenanigans?
Something about a breakup strawberry.
Mm.
Kids in these memes these days.
Oh yeah, the dankest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they missed the stream last time with Dan and Osi. That's,
Oh, yeah.
That's the meme people.
That is the memeronis. I don't know.
You know better than I do. So describe making an Italian dish. Oh.
You said dish, so we got
Using only cars. Alright. So.
Nope. I'm trying here. Just keep going.
Well, I guess the first thing here is you gotta drive over to your favorite
All right, we will get to that.
drive over to your favorite supply store and pick up some parts there to make and prepare what you're getting yourself into here. So you're driving over your... Yeah, there you go. You got your auto store here to get your parts. So from here you're gonna, once you get your parts, you're gonna head on home and get in your garage and get yourself set up to begin your work here. So you're going to set up your workbench. First thing you're probably going to need is a cleared surface, of course, on your bench. You're going to need your hacksaw so you can take care of all that cutting that you need to get done and preparation work. And once you get all your preparation work done, you can actually go ahead and use the heat from your motor as a way of hopefully fully what's the word here, combusting and going to completion of your meal prep. I said it. I was doing good for a bit there.
Yeah, no.
So once you have your main piece finishing up on your motor there, you can start adding your accessories so that you can beef up your
Well, you said beef.
so you can have it all with its bells and whistles there, and get all the bells and whistles on your finished product here, so that way you can impress everybody. But of course, no bells and whistles project there would ever be finished without a good side project to keep you entertained in the meantime. And sometimes you got to do a little bit of a it's an interesting looking whistle there.
It's not a John who explains things drawing unless something ends up being phallic. It's it.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. So, but you gotta always have a side project with your main project, and so again, you're gonna go back to your main workbench and your saw. Excuse me, and take care of your some cleaning up. Get everything kind of cleaned up so you can get it prepared, and then go ahead and prepare it. Give it some nice tender loving, but be careful because that tender.
Oh wait, no, hold on.
So once you give it some loving there, you gotta be careful because you don't want to have a how do I say this properly? You don't want to have any overheating of your engine or your side parts there, because your side project just as important as your main project there, with your main parts and your bells and whistles. So, you know, while your side project might feel like something small, you always got to have side project treated just as fairly as your main project. And once your main and side project are all finished, then you are good to go and you are free to take the road and do as you please, show off to everybody what you've done.
All right. I think that you have successfully completed the task at hand. So I would like to applaud you.
Thank you.
One clap.
That was rather interesting there.
Yeah. No, I think you did well. I think, and we got to see this wonderful mosaic of the automotive process. So.
Yeah.
No, I think you did well. We will stay on the stream for a little bit if there are any more riveting questions in the comments. There have been some interesting statements. I don't know that any question marks were ever actually used, so that would be something I'm looking for. But I don't know. Is there any questions you have for me?
You know, what's this project here about you and James trying to make a robot here?
Oh yeah, so my friend proposed the idea. He was looking for a summer project. He was looking to possibly make a robotic body that could be running. And thank you for the question mark. That is important. We will get to that in a second. So he wanted to look into the realms of robotics. We're both, I'm mechanical, he's aeronautics, but at the same time, these electronic projects would be beneficial to both of us. and we were considering the possibility of taking Jeffrey here and putting him onto a computer board to try and run this robot, whether it be small or large. I'm not sure what idea he was going for, but I do think that Jeffrey does have some work to be done, as you can see from his frozenness and his normal running into the wall-idness.
Yeah.
So,
be interesting to see a robot just kind of freeze
but
and then toss itself at a wall.
I'm sure that you would love just a random beeping machine with wheels rolling out of my room at 9 o'clock in the morning when you're heading out to the gym.
Yeah,
but,
that'd be some interesting times. Maybe teach him how to use the gym, you know.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't make him any stronger than he already is. That might be a little dangerous.
Yeah, that's true. You might get an iRobot situation.
Yeah, but, I mean, iRobot wasn't all bad. Because, you know,
true.
the good one kind of fixed stuff, sort of.
Yeah.
But that is the general overview of the project. I'm not sure how soon into the future that will be accomplished due to the fact that robots cost money.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't have the resources to just make it on my own without buying things.
Right.
Although I probably could go to some sort of mine and find the silicone, but that's pretty much what we're looking at.
Very cool.
Yeah, I do have some other projects I've been thinking about in terms of like games that involve the AI or just like websites in general. But we do have a question for the first time. What size is your shirt?
Is my shirt. My shirt currently is a small, men's small.
All right. Now that you are now that you've opened your eyes to the realm of Thomas's shirt, I'm sure that you will be much more prone to understanding these concepts of categorization and whatnot. But yeah, so I don't think we're going to stick on too much longer, but this was a fun time.
Yes, definitely was. I enjoyed being here. Thank you for having me.
And I enjoyed prototyping the debate idea here. Hopefully Jeffrey will be running in the next one, but I do have many ideas for these debatable topics to talk about in the future, because I think it is important to see several sides of a conversation, because obviously if I'm the only person trying to describe something, then I can be biased. But if we have two minds coming from two different sides, then there's no group polarization. You just have maybe a compromise that's more correct in the middle. So, but do post in the comments if you have a specific side that you are siding with in this debate, or if maybe if you were to one side and the arguments here have swayed you from that position you held. But other than that, there's not much more to say. So I do believe that I will be streaming on Wednesday. And so I want to thank you guys for watching. And we will be signing off here. But I will see you on Wednesday.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
See ya.